Alright, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Fire9013 here. And I wanted to do a spoiler review because I really wanted to talk about, and I'm sorry for all the ums, I really wanted to talk about a lot of the things in the movie that I had problems with or didn't have problems with, and I didn't want to do this on the spoiler-free review because it just would give away too much in the movie, and I don't like to spoil movies if I can keep from it. So I like to warn people, spoilers, that kind of thing. But so Guardians of the Galaxy 3, as I said in my spoiler-free review, it is an absolutely fun movie in my opinion. There's a fair plot. It had moments of thinness in the plot. It was, but it was fun. It did not disappoint me. I know that a lot of people said that they were disappointed compared to the other two movies. I thought it was better than the second movie, and I'll tell you why. Because I thought, as I said in the spoiler-free review, I thought this movie was more action-packed. It moved faster, sometimes a little too fast in some ways, but honestly, if you don't have enough time to catch up to what all's going on, it moves too fast. But in my opinion, Guardians 2 moved way too slowly. It was, to me, like in Star Wars prequels, it was like the Episode 1, Episode 2, and Episode 3, or Attack of the Clones was the worst one because it was so slow. It took forever to get off the ground. And that's the way. Now, Guardians 2 didn't take forever to get off the ground. It just hit a screeching halt in the middle of the film. And that I hated about that movie. And I can tell when I'm not wrong about that kind of thing because I'm watching a 7-year-old watch the movie and he feels the same way. When he gets up if we're watching it at home and he gets up and wants to go start playing, and I'm like, hey, where are you going? We're supposed to be watching this movie. He's like, oh, yeah, okay. It's just kind of boring here. Well, there you go. That's a 7-year-old being honest. And he's not wrong. And I agree with it. But he did not really do this in this movie. We did stay up a little bit too late the night before. And then I took him to see it after school. So he was tired, but he was not bored. And there is a difference. When you're 7, there's a complete difference. But I could tell when the action parts were up on the screen for this movie, it wasn't boring. So Adam Warlock, I've got to start down the problem with Adam Warlock. First of all, he was an idiot in the movie. I did say I withheld that kind of stuff in the spoiler-free review because, I don't want to spoil the movie, and I don't want to make you not want to go see it simply because but I did warn you, if you're an Adam Warlock fan, you're not going to like it. Well, there's a reason. They explained it away like, oh, he was pulled from the pod too young, and he's not fully matured, and horseshit. Sorry, but that doesn't mean he's a complete moron. And in this movie, he was. There were times that he wasn't, but throughout the film, they just made a joke of this character, and it didn't do the character justice, in my opinion. Now, that's me coming from a place of being a fan, but the movie really starts right away with Adam Warlock attacking the Guardians. Okay, and then understandable because that's kind of where we came from in Guardians 2. And then it hit a screeching halt. The only thing that really happened after that was I think Rocket got injured. Okay, I don't want to give away too much, but Rocket got injured and he's on his deathbed kind of injury, and he starts having flashbacks to his origin. This is, little baby Rocket. And so during this baby rocket phase, and these flashbacks happen throughout the film. So if it's really hard for you to understand, or your smaller kids, this is why it's not for smaller kids. I think my 7-year-old might have had a little trouble keeping up with all the flashbacks, but he seemed to understand it. But I think you start getting younger. Not only that, but there was some things in the movie that I would definitely shy away from showing a smaller child. That he it gets harder and harder to understand when they're flashing back and when they're flashing forward. But they did do a good lens transition, so you understood when it was a flashback. It wasn't just filmed in the same filter. So, you had a different filter to distinguish the two. And then there was, so anyway, they took Rocket, they experimented on him, and it was, where's my clicker? There we go, this guy. And it was the main antagonist in the film. He is the main antagonist, the high evolutionary, and his goal is to create the perfect society. Okay, and that is what he's trying to do. He's not trying to take over the universe. He actually says that in the film. He's trying to create a perfect society. But in the process, when he creates an imperfect society, he destroys them, no matter what they are. And his whole problem with Rocket was he was a creation of his. Rocket was a creation of the high evolutionaries. And he needs a part of Rocket to fix the flaws that he don't understand he's making. Because Rocket can literally solve problems that he can't. And he can't stand that. So, long story into this film, but that's pretty much what the whole plot is about. And it's actually a good plot. In the process, the high evolutionary trying to take over the galaxy. I mean, not take over the galaxy, to create a better society. He has to have Rocket to complete his society. Well, because Rocket gets injured, the Guardians set out to, save Rocket, and they have to go to this place. But to get access into this place and to be able to do what they need to do, they have to reconnect with past Gamora. Now, oh my gosh, I started to say this in the spoiler-free review. In fact, I recorded it, but I deleted it. I took it out. I edited it out because I didn't want to give away too much in the film. But my biggest complaint with this movie, absolutely biggest complaint with this movie, is not Adam Warlock. And that's bad because Adam Warlock was treated horribly. But Gamora. So Gamora, keep in mind, her time that she was pulled from is the start of Guardians 1. Okay? She is pulled from the time when she is still in Thanos' army at the start of Guardians 1. But the problem is if you remember back in Guardians 1, she and Nebula are both assigned to Ronan. But right before Thanos assigns her and Nebula to Ronan, Gamora is not assigned to Ronan in the alternate timeline, in this Gamora's timeline. And instead, they go after the Avengers, right? And that's where it stops. That's where this Gamora come from. And in Guardians of the Galaxy, in prison, she realizes this Guardians of the Galaxy, while they're a bunch of morons, they have the same goals in mind for what needs to happen in the universe, including the death of Thanos. So she's like, okay, we're gonna keep Thanos from getting the stone in Guardians 1, right? This all happens within the time frame of just a few weeks. Minimum. Really, it's days. But now we come forward into Guardians 3, and Gamora, literally from the day before they met, is a completely different fucking person. Completely different person. It is ridiculous how they said no, we're going to take her and we're going to make her the daughter of Thanos in the new Guardians, and she has no, qualms about killing people. She has no uh, remorse for killing innocent people. But that's not who she was, even from the time that they supposedly took her from. It's stupid. Anyway, I won't keep going off about it. The Guardians find the piece of information they need to save Rocket is on this flesh uh, space station thing. Um, Nathan Fillion, who a lot of people know from Firefly as Mal, the captain of Firefly. He's in that, and most people know him as Castle. He's in the film. He plays one of the uh, main guard characters. He did a good job. I mean, he did a good role. It was a waste of his talent, in my opinion. But if they just want to throw somebody in there and have him be a guest appearance, it worked. We had a few of those throughout all the Guardians movies, so it doesn't surprise me. I mean, in reality, Sylvester Stallone was that in Guardians 2. He's actually that in Guardians 3 as well. He's pretty much just a, hey, look, here's Sylvester Stallone again. I keep wanting to call him Steven Seagal. But yeah, here's Sylvester Stallone again. Sure, there he is. Yay. Okay. Useless, pointless, but hey, he's in the movie. Okay, cool. But the Guardians land on this. This is the outside of this flesh, supposedly living space station, which has, of course, a heater gun, almost and this is where I said in the spoiler-free film that Taika Waititi and James Gunn had a different um, uh, style of comedy. This was definitely a more Taika Waititi style comedy, because I think the space station was called Orgasmo or some crap. So it was, it definitely dipped hard into the Taika Waititi comedic realm, and I thought, okay, whatever. I didn't even tell my son what the name of it was, because I was just like, I don't want to talk about that. That's stupid. But they go in the space station. They try to find the information from to save Rocket. Everybody, I swear, everybody in, of course, the plan goes to shit, and everybody in the space station nearly gets killed. Some people taking shots that should have killed them. Of course, Drax is, and this is something that other reviewers said, well, they, thought he was going to die because he was getting shot, and then he just didn't. Yeah. And they didn't kind of explain why this shot didn't kill him. But Drax's, character is nearly invulnerable. The only reason he's not as strong as, say, Ronan or Thanos or whatever, but he is like Hulk, nearly Hulk level invulnerability. So they don't really talk about it. They never have really talked about it. But there's a reason that he, does the crazy stuff he does, is because there's very little ways that he can be injured. If you notice, he's never bled in the film, in any of the films that I remember. And if he does, it was because of either like Ronan or Thanos. So, it's not it's not a common understanding, but uh, Drax is Drax has extremely tough hide, so he can take these hits and things. It hurts him, but he can take it. So I didn't have a problem with that stuff. I did have a little bit of a problem with when Adam Warlock first attacked. Um, throwing people through buildings. There was a little bit of issue I had with that. People that are more less invulnerable, than Drax, but all in all, it was whatever, Um, some of that I don't know what the materials are, kind of thought process, but um, and they don't really talk about Mantis's character being able to take impact either. Uh, but in Guardians 2, she was hit by a freaking meteor. It was a small one, but that was part of the when she was trying to keep Ego asleep, a meteor hit her. And Drax yells, "Mantis, look out," after the fact. Of course, you know, it's because she can take a hit too. There's a lot of the things that are overlooked if you allow it to delve into, oh my gosh, why is this person not dead? Because they're taking all this hit. Well, understand everybody has different powers. She doesn't have any strength. She has the ability, the psychic ability. So that's where she gets her power from, and she can take a hit, but she can bleed. Um, they eventually realize that from this information they got, they still need a piece of the information because there's information missing in the thing that they were looking for. So they go to the planet where the High Evolutionary is trying to create the perfect society, and that's when you see most of the preview from where Drax throws the ball at the child and bops her upside the head. The thing that happens in the previews don't exactly happen the same way. It moves forward faster, but it it's not it's not unheard of the way they did it. So it just it's a little bit different from previews, as y'all know. They love to give us previews of clips that they recorded that they're not actually putting in the film, and I don't know why they keep doing that, but they do it. The attempt is misdirection, but in reality, it ends up being disappointment, and it happens every time. Now, I don't know why they can't understand the difference between that. Now, if the misdirection is actually a better misdirection because what happens in the film is actually better than what happens on the preview, okay, I get it. That actually makes sense. But to make something, I always go back to that most recent Fantastic Four fiasco that was horrible, by the way. I hated that film. Um, they had the Thing jump out of an airplane, crush a tank, and I thought, oh man, that's cool, and it never was even in the movie, and it was just like, why? So anyway, we got the misdirect happening here, but they land on this perfect society. They realize where the High Evolutionary is. They're still after this one piece of information that's going to save Rocket, and so they go to confront the High Evolutionary. Meanwhile, Rocket is still kind of doing this flash forward thing in the movie. Of course, he's having the near death experience is what's happening. He's having his life flash before his eyes, but most of it has to do with his origin because that's what we need to know, right? And come to find out, this is where all the leaks come in, that his friends all die and all that kind of stuff. His animal friends that he made when he was young, they get killed. And so yeah, so they go in. A Guardians moment happens where they get the information uh, according to the plan, but then other members of the Guardians aren't following the plan, so they switch places, and all of a sudden everything's about to go to shit again. And that just ends up being some of the regular formula I was talking about in the spoiler-free review. Quill goes in with Groot. to get the information. They get the information, they escape, but Nebula, Drax, and Mantis try to go in to rescue Peter. When Peter left, and by the way, the building that the High Evolutionary is in turned into a spaceship, so all of a sudden it's now flying, and of course they're trapped. So anyway, and then they realize that they're not on the ship alone, that there's a whole bunch of innocents also on the ship. The High Evolutionary has destroyed the planet because it wasn't the perfect society he's wanting to create, so he's decided he's going to go to a new place to create another perfect society. Anyway, and he's going to try again, right? So they get the information they need back to Rocket, even though Nebula's, and Drax and them are trapped. They're like, well, we got to get the ship anyway, so let's save Rocket. So they save Rocket. Meanwhile, Gamora starts to realize that, oh yeah, I kind of like these people a little bit, so I'm going to keep helping them. So at least there's a little bit of the turnaround, but it still wasn't it completely didn't end up being the turnaround it needed. It was dumb. I can't tell you how much I hated that aspect of this movie. But anyway, all right, so Rocket comes out. They all get on the ship where Mantis and Nebula and Drax are, and even Gamora's there, and they all decide, okay, they're going to rescue the other creatures that are on this ship, right? The High Evolutionaries' new society, if you would. And so they go into the Guardians, pose moment, the slow walk, which happens like 3 times in this film. It's getting a little old now. I mean, in Guardians 1, it happens once. That was cool. Guardians 2, it happens, I think, once. Maybe more than once, but I only remember one. But it was more of the pose. It was more of the Avengers moment pose, where all the Avengers come together and they face off against the Chitauri in New York. Well, they had that moment in Guardians 2, so I guess that was kind of this. And it seems like there was a slow walk moment also, but I can't remember which one it was. Oh, maybe it was when, but that wasn't a Guardians moment. It was just Rocket and Yondu and Baby Groot. But anyway, so this moment happens 3 times in this film, and it's overused a bit. Slow-mo in Guardians 3 was overused, in my opinion. They had too many slow-mo moments, because it made you think somebody's fixing to die or something's fixing to happen that's really horrible or whatever, and then it just doesn't. So it's because there's no payout. And I will agree with that. A lot of people are complaining about that. I tend to agree with that one. They could have just done it in regular regular time, and it wouldn't have had the same ill effect. If they'd have just done it regular time instead of slow-mo, like somebody's fixing to get shot. Oh my gosh, this probably means they're fixing to die. No, they got shot, but they're fine because it's Drax or whatever. That's where it should have been. Just go ahead and keep it fast-paced, because if there's no critical moment behind it, there's no reason to have a critical moment at all. That's just my opinion. This one is actually earlier in the film. This picture, I put it in here because I wanted to talk a little bit. I'd originally intended on talking about how Gamora is different in the film here, but it drives me so crazy that I couldn't help it. I went off early, but the relationship between Peter and Gamora seem to be now mutually understood. Quill now understands that this is not the same Gamora, and Gamora now understands why she likes Peter, but they still go separate ways. Anyway, and then the fight scene happens where they're facing off against all the creatures that the High Evolutionaries made to defend himself, and the rocket on Groot moment happens, and of course we have the great action, and they save all the creatures. It is a dramatic fashion. I'm not going to reveal everything. I'm not going to spoil the whole movie because it was good. It was really kind of fun the way they found a way to stop the High Evolutionary and rescue all the creatures on this ark-like starship thing that it was. And I just didn't want to. I don't want to spoil too many things because there are some fun things in the movie that just should be watched. And I can't help but tell you that it sounds like I really hated this movie. I hated the way they did two specific characters. I heard a lot of people say, well, they didn't really focus on any of the other characters. I disagree with that. I think it was always, I think the Guardians movies were always about Peter and Gamora. At some points, Nebula. They did have a resolution to Drax's storyline, but Drax's story is over. It started in the Guardians 1, and it kind of ended there. Drax has been a stale character for a little while, and this brought resolution to it, in my opinion. So I disagree with that. Groot is, well, Groot. We've seen him grow up into a new Groot. It's not the same Groot, by the way. That's something that I think people mistake, is the idea of, well, there was Groot in the Guardians 1, and then all of a sudden when he's in this movie, he's completely different. Let me go back and see if I can show you well, there he is right there. He's completely different. No, he's younger, but he is completely different. It's an offspring. I mean, Rocket grew a twig into another Groot. It's not the same Groot. It is Groot, but it's not the same Groot. Which I didn't understand quite why. If Rocket planted the twig and it became Groot, why didn't any of the other twigs that were laying on the ground on the planet, the Nova planet, Nova Prime, why didn't they grow into Groots? But anyway, but then you have Adam Warlock come along at some point. I think it was when they were still on the planet that ended up getting destroyed by the High Evolutionary, because he thought this society is imperfect, so I'm going to destroy it, and all that happened, and then he took off in his ship. He goes along, attacks him again, has a moment where Groot saves him. He realizes, oh wait, these people actually care about people, and I think I'm going to, change my ways or whatever. It was really shallow, in my opinion. And the way they treated Adam Warlock was shallow, and I didn't like that. And I didn't like the way they treated Gamora, as if she is a completely different Gamora as opposed to the Gamora that she should have been. But all in all, like I said before in the spoiler-free review, this is a fun movie. It is, to me, it's the second best film. I just didn't like the way they treated two specific characters. I didn't get to go into these two characters because they weren't really that deep into the film. There was some play action in there with them at the beginning and the end, and they become, a little bit more prominent towards the end. But I do like the dog. I thought the dog character in the movie was fun to watch. Wasn't in it a lot, but it was fun to watch. And so anyway, that is my spoiler filled review. I hope you guys do go see the movie, because I think it was a fun movie to watch, and I think you enjoyed it. Thank you for your time. I wish you all Godspeed. This is Fahrenheit 13 signing off. See you next time.